right off the top here, hour number 2, is that there was a very real reason to be unsettled with the Denver Nuggets offseason. There was, like, tangible things to draw from. In fact, most of the people that I have like a really high level of respect for that talk about the NBA at a high level, whether in this market or otherwise, national folks, pretty much everyone was on the same page, honestly, with Jokic, of like, this isn't good enough. You're telling us the plan is to run back what's not good enough. You've been bounced in the second round 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Your coaching hires internal. You have this bizarre setup with 2 GMs. Like, there was real reasons to be anxious the way that I was, but the tone has to reflect the information that you have. And with new information comes new opinions. And there have been, yesterday was just a flat-out curveball. And these other subsequent moves, I think they're really productive. So I want to take my hat off to John Wallace and Ben Tenzer as unorthodox, abnormal, however you want to use the setup, the phrase for the setup. From what we know now, who knows how this will age?
Yeah, nobody does. But on paper right now, like we say with the Denver Broncos, on paper, it's looking a lot better and healthier for the Denver Nuggets.
Yes. So I will credit this front office.
How much credit do you give to Josh Kroenke? Because to me, it's like he's the one that, as of right now, was the only one to believe, hey, we're gonna have 2 general managers. Let's just say, I know that's not their names; they have different names, but 2 general managers. I'm gonna trust them, and I'm gonna kind of take a step back because that's what it seems like he has done so far. It's like people thought that I was so attached to MPJ, and that's not the case. And Ben Tenzer and John Wallace were able to get something done.
Yes.
So for Josh Kroenke, it seems like his plan is working right now.
Again, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. But because the game's played on hardwood, not on paper. But again, the information that we have right now, man, from a roster construction standpoint, and getting out of MPJ's contract, and I know you had to give up a first round pick, and but like I've said through the years, good trades should sting a little bit, and MPJ, let's just talk about him before we move on here. Because,
yeah, I feel like we kind of just like ignored him, and now we're so excited that we forgot what he has done for us in the past, and he was a part of this, and he was drafted by the Nuggets.
Yeah, man. This is how this goes with the guys that's leaving town. This is how this goes. Doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. This is sort of the construct. We love the new guy. Take care to the other guy. But I'll say this, man. Michael Porter Jr. was a really, really good Denver Nugget and a part of a championship team. And perfect player, no. But where I think people mostly went sideways with Michael Porter Jr. is they weighed what he was making to who he is as a player.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Usually that's what you do.
As you talk about with, you shared this once or twice with the Melvin Gordon experience. When Melvin Gordon came in, he was making whatever, $8 million a year.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not actually his fault. The team paid him. So I can be mad at Melvin, but it's like, ultimately, I would have taken that money if someone offered it to me.
It's the front office valuing him so much that they're willing to give him that amount of money, and it just doesn't work out on the football field. You can't be mad at that guy, though.
No. And so with MPJ on the basketball court, he was never going to fulfill a max contract. And it was sort of like, yeah, you're on a max contract, but you're in this really unique position as a role player. But I'll say this, he embraced his role. He was not a malcontent. He was not a bad apple. Like, he just wasn't. And you're talking about a guy who played 350 games for the Denver Nuggets, started almost 300 of them, 843 threes filled. That's second in the history of the franchise. His 3-point field goal made per game, 2.5, that's number 1 in the history of the franchise. The most threes ever made in a single season was MPJ last year. The second most was MPJ this year. He's got 4 of the top 10 single season made 3-point seasons in the history of the franchise. I understand why he became frustrating. I do not believe he was an absolute dog, but for years he was a good fit here, and I'm definitely not on a day like today going to be kicking him on the way out.
No, definitely. He doesn't deserve to be kicked. He's done a lot for us. He helped us win a championship, and he was going through a lot. That's what people are forgetting, that he was going through a lot in his family life He was going through a lot with his body. When you're 6'11", all right, and you're a bigger man and you're dealing with a back injury,
right,
that takes time to heal. When you have one of your brothers hurt somebody, murder somebody, you have another one gambling and now he's banned, and you have another one that was in trouble for drinking and driving.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot on your mind when you're going through the playoffs, when you're going through and you're a max player and we're relying on you every single night to produce at a high level and take the shots. So for someone like MPJ, I feel like he embraced that. I feel like he was very mature, and he was able to block out certain things. But as time went on, I think it started to affect him, on top of some of the injuries and the shoulder this year. So it was a great Denver Nugget. It was one of these things, like you said, the money was not matching up with the productivity. The money was not matching up with MPJ. We need you to be able to shoot 5 to 7 threes a night. We need you to be able to be consistent enough every single night. You can't get into the playoffs and not score a single point. You can't get into the playoffs and only score 3 points and get benched as a starter.
Right.
Something you cannot do when you're making so much money.
Totally. And there's a reason that he is being shipped out of here. I, at the end of the day, am very satisfied with the trade and bringing in Cam Johnson, who's a more well-rounded, complete player than MPJ. But two things can be true at the same time, okay? And when you're in the Western Conference Finals trying to win a championship, and MPJ averaged 15 points, over 9 rebounds, and shot over 42% from 3 in the Western Finals, when you were winning games 132 to 126, 108 to 103, 113 to 111, and the margins are just razor thin. He was a big part of a championship. So, but again, I think this is a perfect ending to the story. And good for him. You mentioned the shoulder. He played through it. It showed, toughness. He was ineffective.
He was not a selfish guy.
No. And again, he embraced his role. His role got reduced to such a degree of who he was supposed to be. And you go back to his second season in the NBA. It's the 2020-21 season. MPJ was scoring 19 points a game, Phil, on 45% shooting from 3 in just his second year in the NBA. And what happened at the start of that next season? 9 games in, he gets hurt. This is after signing the contract. He has to have a third back surgery before the age of 25. The fact that he ended up rebounding and playing in 81 games and 77 games in back-to-back years, scoring 17 and 18 points a game, that's not nothing, man.
No, it's
not nothing.
And you got to think of it like this. In order to get a trade done like this for Cam Johnson, you have to be able to have somebody to trade that somebody values.
Yes.
All right. And
I like
even
where you're going here.
After 3 back surgeries and still struggling, you still have the Nets saying, you know what? We see something in MPJ, so much so that we're willing to give up another player that is a little bit better than MPJ, but the Nets value someone like Michael Porter Jr. enough to make this deal. There was times when we talked about this, like, hey, is the reason why we can't get a trade done with MPJ is because of his injury history? Is it because he's not consistent enough? Well, you finally get a deal done, and it's like the reason why is because he had enough value to get it done with.
He did, and he had someone who had already coached him saying, yeah, we can trust this guy. The head coach of the Brooklyn Nets is Jordi Fernandez. Jordi Fernandez was an assistant coach for Michael Malone for years. 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. He watched Michael Porter Jr.
Yes, a familiar face.
So he felt comfortable saying, we can bring him in. And it's interesting because, you could see a scenario where MPJ starts putting up better numbers in Brooklyn. This for the same reason that I think you could actually see Cam Johnson's numbers go down in Denver because it's less of a workload. You could actually see it go up for MPJ in Brooklyn because the Nets did something crazy last week. Dude, they had, and I can't remember ever seeing this, they had 5 first-round picks. Now, I've seen teams have 5 first-round picks, but you use them to move up the draft board. You trade them for other players.
You don't pick 5 guys.
Bro, they picked all 5 guys.
They picked 5 guys.
No joke. But here's the thing. They're all dribble drive creating guards, and they're not shooters. So you could see a scenario where MPJ is the beneficiary of what they have going on in Brooklyn. And hopefully good for him. I mean, if that happens, good for him.
Well, that's why, but also you just said it right there, having that familiar face, knowing that coach, maybe someone like John Wallace. I keep saying John Wallace because I think he's the guy that has a lot more connections than Ben Tenzer.
Totally.